This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a hot, sticky and rather humid day here in Djuma Private Game Reserve. But at least the hyena den is active. We do have Ribbon and 2 cubbies. Very relaxed, but at least is active. So my plan for today is to stay here as long as we can. So of course, everyone, welcome on board. It's that time of day for your live safari through the African bush. Glad you're on board with us, everyone, and I think Ribbon is too. Would you look at that? She's still looking rather skinny, though, I'm afraid. It doesn't appear that she's feasted at all since we seen her just yesterday. But she may have had something small, of course. She may have snacked along the way. So, my name is Lauren, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce my new cameraman. What's your name again?
David.
David.
Darby.
Oh, okay. I have Darby on camera. He's back in Djuma, everyone. So it's very, very good news. And he's overjoyed to see 3 members of the Djuma clan. Now, let's watch Ribbon. She's limping. Let's watch how she moves. I still don't understand why she's not had some food. But let's just watch her mobility right now and see how well she's walking. So, of course, before I forget, this is your live safari. Please do talk to us. Send in your very interesting questions, your wonderful comments. Sorry, everyone, I'm just studying her walking. She's definitely a little bit better than she was the other day. Clearly still limping, though. So use the @FC on the YouTube chat, #WildEarth on Twitter. You can head over to wildearth.tv/explorers and kids. Most importantly, you send your questions via email, and the email address is kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. She's walking off, isn't she? So of course, since Ribbon is leaving, that means we must leave. There's no other adult at the den that we can see. They could be off in the thicket, but we must leave the little cubs now. And in case any of you missed the sunset safari last night, we had Corky. So it's good news. Corky is alive and well. So I'm going to say goodbye to these little spotted cubs for now, and we're going to send you across to Kim with her spotted cats.
Welcome to andBeyond Phinda. We have come back to check on these 5 cheetah cubs this morning, and it doesn't look like much has changed. The 3 zebra that we were with last night, or there was this back and forth going on last night, are still here. And it would appear that the back and forth has been going on for the entire night. They're pretty much in the exact same spot where we left them. Cheetah are just lying around, but the zebras, as you can see, are kind of skirting around them, keeping their eye on them. I'm Kim, and behind the camera we've got OD. And yeah, I think it's going to be quite an exciting morning this morning. We weren't sure of what we were going to find when we got back here this morning after last night. I definitely didn't think the zebra would still be around. I thought that they'd maybe will have given up at this point. But as we can see, that is not the case. We've also been chatting a little bit about how these cheetah are hungry. They've got quite skinny stomachs, and if they are hoping to hunt at any stage, they are not going to be able to do that with these zebras around, because has blown their cover, and any animals around them or around here will know that there's a predator in the area because of how these zebra are acting. We're going to stick around here and see what happens. It does look like the cheetah are starting to get a little bit more active. But we're going to send you over to Andrew and his Waterbuck.
Good morning everybody. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve here where we got Waterbuck. Looks like female and a male. Probably a lot of females there that have vanished into that bush. But this male has been following them for quite some times now since we got into this position here. And looks like it's probably checking for the female status. My name's Andrew. On camera this morning I have Simon. So we came to check Gary Dam, just the beginning of a drive here, just to see if there's anything around. But seeing that, it's quite not quite a lot, but an antelope in this area. Well, we're just going to check, because I know for sure was a leopard. The Ngala that was headed, would assume that he's headed towards the dam here from the eastern side. So, this is where we're going to be spending time checking around here. Remember, we're coming to you live from this area where we would like to hear from you. Communication, questions and comments, you can send them. The under the age can still use kids question at WildEarth.tv. Also on Twitter, hashtag WildEarth. And at FC YouTube channel, as well as WildEarth.tv and Explorer. And it's also cool that, we participate and then we don't feel alone out here. So today, our weather, we spend on 24 degrees, 74, 76 Fahrenheit. Cloudy, I believe if this is going to be like this the whole entire day, I think it's going to be the best for us, also for the animal. They can still do their movement, but also we can do our thing, which is to, look for them, find them. So I'm going to check around here, see if I find anything around the dam while I'm sending you over to Mike with his Impala.
We just came over to Impala Plains to watch this big old herd of impala slowly moving across, because there was lots of noise this morning. Lots of males were making all sorts of grunting and complaining, so we wondered what was going on. Just looks like they're enjoying a nice, relatively cool morning, although very humid. It's a wonderful day. I wonder what it's going to bring. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Anderson. Behind the camera is Gert. He's back with us here at Eco-Training Pridelands Conservancy. And it's a nice open area, so it's a good place for us to listen to the calls of animals. On this morning, without too much wind, sound can travel quite a far distance. So it would be a good place for us to listen out for the calls of hyenas, of which we've been seeing plenty around this open area, as well as lions and leopards, anything that might be announcing their final movements before settling down. It's about 24 degrees right now, which is about 76 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very humid, incredibly humid. That storm that I spoke about yesterday that's heading towards Mozambique, just the tip of it reaching us here. But as you can see, these impalas not too concerned about it. They are just doing their morning things. Some youngsters galloping around, using up that nervous energy from the night in the dark, especially with a bit of cloud cover like this. It would have been very dark. A few males sparring as well. Oh, 3 males sparring, that's weird. Very excited energy from these impalas. In a nice big group of impalas like this, there'll be lots of males that want to impress the females. MP, it all depends on a lot of factors, to be honest. How much food is around, how many impalas there are in an area, but this group of impalas here spread between, all the way on the other side of this clearing to over here, there must be probably about 70 impalas. And we've actually seen a group of about 100 male impalas. This group consists of both males and females and youngsters. So I think maybe over 200 impalas could easily be in a group together if the conditions were just right. Like here we have this big open clearing where most of Pridelands is quite bushy. So that means a lot of impalas, which like open areas like this, will be flocking to this area. And I think this group is probably consisting of at least 2 or 3 separate bunches. There's 2 herds of females with youngsters and their associated male. And then there's a whole group of bachelors busy running around like crazy. So from animals that are being very active this morning, we'll send you over to Rowan, who's got a very sleepy one.
Morning everyone, and welcome to andBeyond Ngala. We caught up with the Rossmale, the grumpy Rossmale really. He had quite a busy night. They've been roaring all night long from open camp, and then we found his track at tented camp coming in a westerly direction and managed to find him about 5 minutes ago now, but as you can see, fast asleep. My name is Rowan, and behind the camera, we've got BK. Morning, everyone. And yeah, you're on andBeyond Ngala. Lovely morning, though. We've got a bit of cloud cover. Our plan for the morning was actually to go look for the Birmingham Pride, to see if they've come in. And so, of course, when we drove out of camp and we found his tracks, and the tracks coming in this direction, we popped into the riverbed, drove the riverbed, nothing crossing over the riverbed. And as we came out of the riverbed, found him. His head was still up, but then as we parked, he just put his head down, and this is him fast asleep. So I don't think they ate last night. Judging by his breathing, it's quite calm and slow, so it doesn't look like they killed anything last night. But the night before, we know they had a carcass. It'd be interesting to know what the rest of the Birmingham Pride is up to, where he left them. Could be that he heard different males calling from further west, and he was moving in that direction just to make his presence known, also roaring and urine spraying. But I kind of think he found his spot for today. So later on, when the sun comes out, he might move just a little bit further west. There's a nice little riverbed on his left, actually behind him, that he might move into. It will keep him nice and cool for the rest of the day. I think this might be just his spot. So we're going to let him sleep for a while. We might return in a bit. But for now, we'll carry on further east, look for the rest of the Pride. I think that would be our plan for the morning.
Good morning and welcome to Tswalu. At the moment we're at Shikudu Dam, just enjoying the dawn chorus. A number of different bird species are calling. We also heard a hyena calling in the distance. So quite often when animals do call, it's because the air is nice and cool and stable at this time of the morning. So therefore their call can actually carry much further. My name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got Craig. And then in the distance we've also got a Wildebeest bull that's just come to have a little bit of a drink. And this bull that we are looking at over here, he's had a territory in this area for quite a while now. And I've been watching him over the years, and if you just zoom in onto his face, you'll see that his face is full of red swirl, so is his legs. He's just rolled in dust. So quite often with these territorial males, they have little dust hollows, which they will roll in and defecate in. And what will happen is then that the scent of the dung will impregnate on their coat, which is also one of the dominant signals that they provide. I've quite often watched this guy coming close to this waterhole, and when any other wildebeest bull comes close by to come and have a drink, they're immediately chased away. Especially so when there's other breeding herds in the area. So our plan for this morning is we're going to continue from Tswalu Dam. We're going to see if we can relocate on those bat-eared foxes that we had a few days ago and go and see what they're up to. As mentioned before in one of the previous shows, our Wildebeest in South Africa has become resident species that don't migrate any longer. Some of them will maybe move up to some 25 kilometers away from water. However, the territorial males will almost never leave their territories. Unlike in East Africa, where they will have mobile territories and migrate incredibly large distances.
So nothing much has changed. The zebra's still stalking around. Still a very, very interesting sighting though, and we're just wondering who on earth is going to give in first out of the two groups. The cheetah don't look too worried about the zebra, but like I was saying earlier, if they want to hunt at any stage, they're going to have to make a change. Because actually the way we found these cheetah this morning is that from quite far away, as you can see, it's quite easy to see the zebra and the cheetah are much lower down. So we were quite a distance off and we saw those zebra looking as they are now, and we immediately knew that they must still be looking at the cheetah. And any other animals around here will also read that behavior and realize that there's some kind of predator here. And they'll stay clear of the area. Quite interesting though, because even these two zebra turning their back on the cheetah, which is quite interesting. So I suppose they do look a little bit vulnerable. They're still quite young, but hopefully with there being 5 of them, there's enough of them to keep a lookout for danger that will keep them, they'll be alert enough to kind of keep themselves safe and out of harm's way. They're just going to have to develop their skills and grow into big, strong adult cheetah, hopefully. But at the moment, because they still are quite young, only 10 months old, they do look a little bit vulnerable. Okay, I think we're going to have to move out. There are quite a lot of people who are wanting to come and see these cheetah. Hopefully we'll be able to come back a little bit later. But at the moment, just because of how stubborn this scene has been for the last 12 hours or so, I feel it might carry on like this for a little while. But for now, we are going to send you to another live location.
Like a gladiatorial arena, these impalas are relentless in their sparring. Especially in the dust, it looks quite epic. They're using this open area on that cleared piece of land that's being rehabilitated to be able to fight without tripping over any sticks or stones or hurting themselves. And you can see how intently they take each other on. They need to focus, otherwise it'll be very dangerous. They could easily end up getting stabbed, lose an eye, or get killed even if a horn would slash them in the neck. So it makes them very vulnerable to other animals like lions, leopards, which might be watching them, even a hyena. So they have to do this when it's nice and open. Now it's not the rutting season. These are quite intense sparring matches. They can get quite intense, but essentially there's no real outcome to this. They're just practicing. Only in about March, April, May sort of time do they really start to fight with the intent of winning dominance over females. That is our radio. So one of the other guides is out helping us look for whatever might be around on Pridelands today. At least 3 or 4 sets of males are sparring on this side. So that's a small bachelor group. All just prancing around and practicing their footwork. And it's really, it goes from being quite dainty to being very powerful and pushing each other. Then all of a sudden they break and they'll do a bit of hopping and skipping. And every now and again they do this rocking, jumping run, which is again just showing off their fitness to each other, to say, look, even though we're fighting, look how much energy I still have. You want to give up. And this is probably also helping them to gauge each other. Now, of course, they can smell each other and they know who is who. And so by sparring like this, when it comes to the rutting season, where those matches become much more intense and the outcomes mean the chance to mate with females or not, it means that certain individuals will know already that their rank is nowhere near, or their strength or skill is nowhere near the match of another one. So they'll just avoid that fight in completely. So while I'm enjoying this, we'll send you over to Lauren at Djuma.
I have been searching for this bird for quite some time. Marcel and I tried the other day, but it flew away. Here we have the dwarf bittern. Now it looks very much like a heron and it's closely related to herons. But you can see it's got that striped chest and just... Oh no, don't walk away. Well, at least you've got all of 5 seconds of the dwarf bittern now. You'll find them around waterholes, of course, because they eat frogs, fish, and all delicious aquatic insects. But luckily we have the weavers here in full swing, in case you can't hear them already. It is such a wonderful thing to sit and watch them weave, watch them get competitive, watch them be so busy from sunrise to sunset. And sometimes you'll see the females fly in. They've got remarkable accuracy in that they fly straight into the nest. They know exactly where the entrance is, and they'll check it out. But the ones with the masks, that's the males. The females look different. They're nowhere near as elaborate in their coloration because they don't need to be. The males looking so fancy like this, they're trying to advertise. They're trying to catch the attention of the ladies, of course. So the females, they're still yellow, they're still beautiful, but they're definitely not as elaborate as the males here. Well, this is a fresh one from the very beginning. This is Blade of Grass number 1. Would you look at that? This is the first strand of a nest. And look at, I'm checking it out. How sweet. You'll probably finish this by the end of the day. They are said to construct a nest in one day. I think 12 hours is the sort of time frame. I think this is a village weaver. The southern masked in the village, they do look quite similar. But the mask of the village, if that makes sense, doesn't extend quite far into the forehead. It finishes right above the eye, and the eye will be red. Oh, would you look at that? It's not even 6 in the morning. The sun is up, and this male is getting busy to start his day making a nest. Alison, exactly that. He's laying the foundation. He's starting from scratch. That first blade of grass, Alison, you are right. That's the foundation of what is going to become an incredible, intricately woven nest. That's the very start. I don't think I've seen the very start of the first blade of grass before. I see new nests that are the sort of ring that look like the swing. But I think this is the first time I've witnessed that very, very first blade of grass. You see what I mean about the mask? It cuts off right above the eye. It doesn't extend into the forehead, if you like. I use the word forehead loosely. Come on then, chap. You need to get busy. You see how delicately they're able to use their foot structure and their tails. They fan out their tails. Normally in most birds, tail feathers are quite robust. They're a lot more structured than the other feathers. And they contain a lot more melanin. Normally they're darker in most species of birds. Melanin helps reinforce the tail feathers, strengthens them, and it just helps them to balance. Lover of guides. Oh. I hope you're referring to all of us out here guiding. That is a great name. What a winner. You're asking, how do they remember their nest? Birds are highly visual. They also do have a keen sense of smell. So I imagine there'll be a little bit of scent, but just like they can navigate the skies, they're obviously... Oh, hello. It's Ribbon. Hi, Ribs. Oh, she's walking much better, everyone. I can assure you she was not walking this well the other day. I promise you she's putting weight on it. Hey, girl, where are you going? Are you looking for a leopard? She's very, very skinny for sure, but she's putting a lot more weight on it than she did the other day. I keep bumping into Ribbon everywhere I go in this reserve. I wonder what she's looking for. She's clearly smelling. But you know, hyenas can also sustain on frogs and reptiles. If she comes across a tortoise, she can easily just snack on that. It's not the large sort of species of prey that she always has to go for. That might be easier right now in her condition than actually trying to hunt a scrub hare. She's definitely lost weight. I don't want her losing muscle as well. But you can see she's mobile. We're now at Twin Dams on Gowrie, Main. So she's came all the way from the den down to the southern boundary. I think we should follow her, Davy. What do you think? Let's do it. So yes, just to finish that question, just because they are aerial flyers, they can map out their route via vision, a skill that humans do not have. So I imagine that they will recognize their nest. They'll know exactly where on that tree they decided to hang their nest, and there'll probably be an element of scent in there too. But birds generally heavily rely on their vision. They're visual beings. Okay, Ribbon is actually crossing into Little Gowrie, a boundary where we cannot traverse, but let's just watch her for a second or two. I hope she finds a good meal today, I really do. She needs it. But with scavenging, as many of you know, it's not a bad thing at all. But they do have to wait. They do have to have patience. So it would be really beneficial for her to come across something that she could eat straight away. So I'm going to continue my bumble along the southern boundary and see what else we can find.
You can stick with. All right, thanks so much, Lorraine. So now we actually continue around here. And actually we were trying to do as much as we can, but we're in a track of the male leopard. We think it could be that Tingana. And walk past now, there's tracks, Galago, Pan, heading west, which we're going to stick with it, see how far he went. So we're looking at a tree over here, which is, if you look in the background, all the risings. This is in the western section. We're all now, I think we started this morning it actually was cloudy and it was promising that it's going to be either drizzling or we're just going to hope that it's going to be still stay like this for the entire day. So in an area where low fill, there's quite a lot of unique, all different bushes around here. And starting from these quarry bushes that we trying to move away from them. So all of these bush, magic quarry bushes, but also combined with so many of the other Combritum family trees, which is all russet bush wheelers, and also red bush wheelers. Some of the leadwood as well as Cajun graces, which is knot thorns. And that's why it's covered. It's always tidy cover in this area, tall grasses. So I'm gonna move on. Hopefully we get luck with our Tingana.
Now we've just had an update that a leopard and cub, I don't know who, crossed into Djuma from Twin Dams. Now we are at Twin Dams, and we have been for maybe 10 minutes or so, and I don't see the leopard. The only thing that's going to work against us today, oh look at that little grebe all on his own. The only thing that's going to work against us is we can't actually drive the Mulwati yet, unfortunately. It's not been given the go-ahead since the rains. It's still quite waterlogged. Other areas have been given the go-ahead, but not the Mulwati itself. So we have to scratch around here. I wonder who it is. It could be Sabui, I would imagine. Could be Tandy. Yeah, I think those are our two options. But we've been here the entire time. So I think that's my mission now. Davi's desperate to see a leopard and elephants. So those are my two missions. And underwater, I think this is a little grebe. Yes, it is. A very small little bird, but one of my favorite calls. Can dive right under the water. Excellent scuba divers. And they don't need any equipment. Look at the water, it looks like glass. Sandy, you're asking about the weavers again. We'll put the weavers on for you. I'll just go a little bit forward. The males do fight. It doesn't get too physical. They open their wings and they will shove one another off if someone tries to steal their workmanship. If they try to come in and steal their nest, they will fight. This is the time for the weavers. They call, you can hear them. They're busy, they don't want anyone stealing their hard work. And I have seen two males sort of shove one another off the branches. But I mean, it's not a fight that's as aggressive as it will get. Normally the males like to create their own nest. They're very proud of their hard work. Because in the end, that's what leads them to success. That's what gives them greater fitness. These nests, the females choose it, and it leads them to success. Okay, now I'm going to scratch around Twin Dams and hopefully find a leopard, but for now we're going to send you down to Tswalu with their giraffe.
Sorry, Tswalu. So we're still on a trek of a Tingana, but now he's actually going west. So on actually driveway here, Retailer X is heading west. It's very interesting. So I just want to keep following him. Tracks here. So, but I think it might maybe cross to the west if he hasn't changed his directions. And this is all last night, so, but we started from where he was last thought. Guys have seen him moving west, so we knew exactly that's him, because the tracks was on the eastern side of Gari Dam coming west that way. And then we'll probably miss him last night somewhere where he probably take it easy, grooming or just lying flat, conceive a little bit of energy to get moving again. So it looks like it moved actually quite a lot, but it looks like it. So it's been a lot of also on hyenas tracks on top of his tracks. So it's probably midnight though, these tracks. And then what is interesting is that Lukumuri was seen yesterday just off the boundary, the western boundary there. And then I'm not sure where he went from there the whole night. So we're gonna work the boundary. If he crossed to Sumambile, Tingana, then we're gonna follow him, finding out what has happened. Because it happens maybe if he delays, then maybe he kills something. He's probably feeding on something around somewhere. It's so cool that leopards, when they're mobile at night, it's all about a hunt, but also doing other activities. You know, checking the territories, and checking who's been there in the presence of a female, where we know was Zulu around here yesterday. Track's still on the road, so it looks like he was not actually hunting, but it looks like it. Because this is a driveway and he doesn't actually move off-road or anything. So he moves straight, so it's a straight movement that he was doing. But yeah, I would like to see him again and just to enjoy his healthiness, coat he's got, well, he still have a beautiful coat. What I just saw the other day is not. A lot of time when the leopards getting old, their coat. So Liraja, morning. So you want to know what other animals we use tracks to find them. So, you know, animals in general. I know we don't track so much on impalas, those, because, you know, so animal that you need in the time to see it. So that's where you started from, finding their tracks, which means that also the buffaloes, you know, you can use their tracks to find them. Animal in general. So only depend which one you want. So, but, you know, out here, we tend to follow so much on leopards and these lions. And I think it's because they're harder to be seen. So they're actually very sneaky animals, and they're so small. So it's not easy to see them from way distances. Where then you need to stick with their tracks. Make sure when a track's cut off the road, then you know. Like right now, it looks like our track's not on the road anymore. So we have to see which direction that cross to, so that we can take another road. So which is very important. There we have a wildebeest right straight ahead in front of us. And it looks like a male wildebeest. Looking at us. I'm just gonna check what he's doing, maybe, because also it's an antelope, big antelope. But if it's a danger around here, they can also tell us, or we can see that animal is not happy. So blue wildebeest, more especially males, where they will isolate themselves, especially the dominant male, they actually are highly territorial. Seeing him like this, looks like it's only by himself. Only to tell that he's a male is very dark compared to the females, where the females are not very much that dark. Where all male and females then, they carry horns, they grow horns. But you pick up male amongst the females then, looking at their color.
King, will this wildebeest ever charge at you? King?
King, so you're asking if wildebeest ever charge? No, not really. They're not actually that kind of animals. They're so cool though. They mainly walk away from any presence of human, unless if they threaten, if you corner them. Even in those impala, we know they're not dangerous to human. But if they don't have a way to escape, and they all run to you, this horn will actually damage you. But yeah, they wildebeest, they're so cool. Not this species, they're not actually so mean. Black wildebeest though, then if you play around where they have their calves and things like that, of course those ones will probably charge you or trying to get you off the side. But blue wildebeest, they're cool animals. We out here we only have a blue wildebeest. And sometimes what's happening here with the wildebeest, you know, male, so he establishes on range territory area where he calls his spot to be, and he maintains that. By defecation also has a kind of oily on your neck position, bodies, and probably those glands, those actually you would rub them against the wood, and there's actually left a message behind. Also, when they defecate and roll in the ground, if you ever come across this disturbed ground, you would think, or but yeah, it downed by the wildebeest. And then it's actually attract the females because now he's alone. If the female ever look for him, which is the usually female has to look for him, which is very interesting on this animal. And they don't spend time looking for the females, and they have to wait within their territory range where they now have to hope for the female to return back to their home or territory range. A lot of time the female right now, they all have their babies. There's no mating season.
When you're up, with Lawrence and her Cheetah.
So I'm gonna try to find out where that leopard finally off to. I'm gonna be sending you over to Lauren.
Can't pan anymore.
No, we can't go live.
The leopard, because so we've come back and found these lions, same ones we were with yesterday. Looks like the mothers aren't with them, the two lioness. It's just the 5 youngsters. And the lionesses have possibly gone off to hunt and left the youngsters behind. We were chatting quite a lot yesterday about how the mothers looked quite skinny, and yeah, and the cubs were quite fat still, so I think that they may have decided to go and hunt. And when they catch something, if they want the cubs to come and feed, they'll come and fetch the cubs and take them to the carcass, wherever that may be. So if they're successful, if they were successful last night or even throughout the day, then at some point these cubs will be fetched by their mums or by their mothers and taken to the carcass. But until then, I think it's just going to be a very lazy and relaxed day for these 5 cubs. Lizzie, I think that there are 3 males and 2 females in this little setup. I will have to just double check that, but I'm fairly certain. Those far 2 who've got their bums to us can see 2 sets of testes, so that's 2 boys definitely. And then these 3 lying a bit closer, I can't see under their tails, but of the 3 of them, the one on the far left looks quite big. I think that might be the 3rd male, and then these other 2 females. At least we've got the attention of one of them. We might have his attention, but we definitely don't have his interest. He looks very, very bored with life and us being here. Jessica, it'll just be a little bit of a behavioural kind of sign from the mother. The lionesses will, it'll be, their behaviour that shows that the cubs must stay put. They have a few contact calls that they use where they like vocalise to one another, and often that'll mean, okay, come and follow us now. But I think that the cubs kind of know when the mothers are ready to hunt, and then they know that that's time for them to stay behind. And it'll just be behaviour, just like when we're watching a animal and it's walking along, happy days, and then suddenly, even if you can't see the animal, you'll see its whole demeanour changes, its ears change position, its shoulders become all hunched, it drops its head. So that behaviour tells us straight away that it's spotted an animal and might be going into hunt mode. So it'll just be those subtle behavioural traits that'll tell these cubs that the mothers are off hunting and that they must not stay behind. You can see, I can't really tell because they're all facing the wrong way, but this one closer, it's still got quite a fat belly, but it's already gone down quite substantially since yesterday when we were with them. So I think that if these lionesses do catch something, the cubs will definitely indulge. I think we're going to leave these lions. I think they're going to carry on sleeping, but there is a third big cat that's been found on Phinda this morning, and we're going to go and see if we can get a look at that. But we'll send you to JP with his bat-eared foxes.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. We've just relocated on the bat-eared fox cubs. We see that they've just moved their den a few meters, a little bit further to the north of their original position. Most likely, they were overrun by lice and fleas that made life a little bit uncomfortable for them, and therefore they decided to find a new den. We can just see the little ears of the pups sticking out. The adults are also somewhere around, just hiding behind the vegetation. We're just going to sit here and watch them for a little bit longer and see what they get up to. There we go. One of the pups has just come out of the den. And with Mom not being around, they're back into the burrow.
Inside from WILDwatch.
Copy, she's static. I'll keep you updated. She heard the word live and flop right over. Thank you, my darling. We have Lalamba. She's in the Mulwati, and we actually got permission from Djuma to drive the Mulwati. So our vehicle is slightly different from the others in that, well, it gets through the most difficult situations. Sometimes it doesn't always get through, but we always get asked to follow the animals because our vehicles are a little bit tougher. So we tested the Mulwati. It's still quite waterlogged, but it's doable. And look who we found. Davy is overjoyed. How happy are you right now, Davy? So happy. He's not seen a leopard in a very long time. Tswalu, of course, they do have a population of leopards, but it's just not easy to find. They're not all princesses and dukes and species that love the camera. This must be the most perfect spot in the Mulwati to lie, I believe. The luck we're having with this cat right now is unbelievable. She doesn't look too full, which means maybe she did not kill last night, which is surprising. Look at that perfect tail. But I did hear a leopard crossed from Little Gowrie with cub. and Lalambas in the area. I don't know if that was entirely correct. So I was actually looking for Sabi or possibly Tandy, and we come across Lalamba. Looks like she has a busy night. She's my Christmas cat, 2 years in a row. I think she's appeared on WildEarth 4 years in a row on Christmas Day, I believe. And, well, she's clearly my New Year's Eve cat. Hogmanay, as we call it in Scotland. Any Scottish people who are watching will know exactly what I'm talking about. Others, probably not. But it's the last day of what has been an incredibly tough year, and Lalamba's here to celebrate it. Incredibly relaxed. And your daddy's around too. Tingana's believed to be on the property, or at least he was last night. Our luck has changed with the leopards recently. Couldn't believe our luck yesterday on Simbambili. Considering how thick and how dense the vegetation is, it's really surprising that we're actually finding any leopards. So we're going to sit and enjoy our time with Miss Lalamba here, and we're going to send you guys across to JP with his bat-eared foxes.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. We're still with the bat-eared foxes at the moment. The pups have just disappeared underneath the den. However, the adult is lying up at the back. I always find it amazing how perfectly still they can lie and how quickly they can blend in with the environment. And you can barely see them. We're very, very fortunate to be able to view these pups at the den at the moment. Quite often when bat-eared foxes do see us approach with a vehicle or on foot, they immediately tend to run. They tend to be very shy. In general, if they are resting in the daytime and we walk up close by towards them, if we didn't notice them earlier, they tend to lie flat down and wait almost until you're right on top of them before they run off. Second pup has just made its appearance. Good morning, and to answer your question, how often do they move? Sometimes not at all, and then at other times in a more regular interval. It's also probably to do with the season and the amount of rainfall. It's also possibly that the higher rainfall that we've received has led to more parasites that can bother them, and therefore they've now moved it. But as far as I know, they've been stable here now for the last 3 weeks in the one den before they've moved to the second. Oh, so cute. A little one pup is watching us. The faces are full of sand this morning, especially with the rain and the swell being wet. It seems to stick to everything. This is a third pup that's made its approach now. It's slowly also coming out. We hope that they're all going to come out in full view. Good morning, Offbeard. I'm glad that they're your new favorite because they're definitely one of my favorites. And I always love watching bat-eared foxes, especially if we can find them around a den. And especially when they are being playful as well. So quite often we do find them that they play with one another, especially even the adults will play with one another at times, which is quite a unique behavior amongst adult animals. I just also love watching them when they're feeding as well. Very peculiar way of feeding with their head down to the ground, ears very close by to the ground, listening for insects and things that's underneath the ground. Dig, dig, stop, feed, and they continue that whole action the whole day as that you're watching them eating. So generally in winter, we tend to find that they are more day active, where they will feed on termites, compared to our summer months where our termites become only active at the coldest parts of the night. We also see that with species such as aardwolf, aardvark, and pangolin, which main food is all termites and ants, that they become only active in the coolest parts of the night, which is normally here by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. However, with cool winters, all these animals tend to be more active in the daytime because of the termites starting to feed much earlier. Something has just caught their attention and all their little ears are pinned straight towards something that's bothering them at the moment. It's possible that it's another aardwolf coming in. Ah, there we go. Sorry, there's a bat-eared fox that's come from a distance. We're not sure if it's a related individual, and they're very, very focused on him. And the pups have just disappeared underneath in the burrow because of the stranger that has come close by to their little burrow system. And in the meanwhile, we're going to stick around a little bit longer over here, but we are going to hand you over to Lauren, who is currently with a leopard.
Unfortunately, our leopard has walked behind the car. We've just had the most wonderful... Davy might be able to get her now. Don't want to turn on the camera don't want to turn on the car, sorry, just yet. Want to give Lalamba space. Excuse it, Ariel. Now, she's just spent the past 10 minutes eating grass. It was the most wonderful thing. I've never seen Lalamba do that before. She's just been eating the grass quite happily. All along the embankment of the Mulwati. Oh, now we're going to lie down there. Okay. So I think she's far enough away for us to reposition. Bear with me. The Mulwati is still quite waterlogged. I'm going to try and do a U-turn here. None of the other stations want to join us. They're worried they're going to get stuck. So hopefully she won't continue all the way north in the Mulwati. But it's definitely drivable for us, that's for sure. What is she doing? What is she doing? Is she going to vomit? I think she's got a sore tummy and that's why she was eating grass. She's going to regurgitate. Yeah, there we go. Well, that was lovely. I see my dog do this regularly when she's got an upset tummy. She'll eat a lot of grass and she'll end up bringing that grass back up. And it's just a pile of grass. I mean, there's no other substance to it. But we always believe that it helps her tummy. And I wonder if Lalamba's doing the same thing. Maybe she's not feeling so well. Okay, this may not be the easiest of missions. But let us try. I'm going to have a look at that vomit as well. I know that sounds unpleasant, but it'll help us understand what she was doing. Yeah, it's just a pile of grass. It's exactly the same as what my beagle does. Do you see that, Dobby? Just here. It's just grass and saliva, really. That's what she just brought up. Okay, we need to keep up with her. The vegetation is so thick that we could easily lose her. Okay, here, figure how to for this. We're going to send you across to Kim and her Impala.
We've come across a very new little Impala lamb and its mother. You can see that they are separate from a herd, and often Impala will, no, well, not often, they do leave the herd when they are ready to give birth, and then they go and give birth in a thicket somewhere where they feel nice and safe, and then after a couple of days they'll rejoin the safety of the herd. And this one is tiny. I think that it was probably born last night sometime, or maybe yesterday. And the mother still has kind of, like her tail looks like it's a bit matted with dried fluid, maybe from the birth. So you can tell that it is quite a recent thing, as well as just how tiny that baby is. It's a little bit of a late one in the season. Here on Phinda, the lambs all started dropping, I think the first one was seen on like the 2nd of November. So it's almost 2 months later. And although the bulk of them will all be at the same time, so in the month of November they were pretty much all, well, that's just when they're not, there'll always be a few late births, sometimes even up until kind of February you'll have one just very, very late. And this one's kind of a little bit late as well, not very, but just a little bit behind. That does kind of give it a little bit of a disadvantage to the survival of the youngster. Because now this Impala will definitely be the youngest lamb and maybe the focus of predators. If predators do try and hunt a herd of Impala, they'll always look out for the weakest or most vulnerable. So the purpose of having all the Impala lambs at the same time is so that they're all equally as vulnerable as one another, and they have their chances. A little bit young one, then obviously that will be the one that's the most vulnerable. So a little bit of a disadvantage having the youngsters. Well, the earlier ones and the later ones are always going to be a little bit more vulnerable than the ones that are born with the bulk of, or just with most of the rest. But we've just had a question about how often baby Impala or Impala lambs are eaten by predators, and I'll say at this time of year very often. It's such easy pickings for predators at this time of year when there are so many baby animals around, not just Impala lambs. So even though we do see of these small animals or baby animals around this time of year, that number does slowly drop, and it's quite a noticeable drop because most of the predators will live off of these young animals just because they are so much easier to hunt than the older or the adult prey species. There's bat-eared foxes, which I'm quite jealous about, so we're going to send you over to him, and we're going to carry on making our way to this leopard.
Good morning, welcome back to Tswalu. We're still with bat-eared fox Pops. She's just a bit cautious to see what the other fox is up to. In the meanwhile, we also have noticed that the little pups were coming up to her on a regular interval for being groomed, and she was busy cleaning them, removing all the parasites off their coat, nibbling away. So, shame, these guys must be full of lice at the moment if they're so keen for her to come and groom them. So quite often we see animals, young animals, coming to adults to groom them, and we also sometimes see animals grooming themselves. And the action of some areas is obviously hard to reach, and then somebody else needs to help you. So quite often we see that a lot of social animals will groom one another in aid of reducing social tension, to remove parasites, but also to build a bond between individuals. Here she's back again. It's amazing how quick they are for their small size. Here we go. Good morning, Safari Kitty. I'm not quite sure what the rate is, but I will see if I can find something for you and then get back to you on that. Good morning, Zay. To answer your question, yes, they do. So if you have different groups that come into one another's space, they do often become aggressive towards one another. Also, when we do have individuals that are fighting for mates and to gain dominance for a mate, they also might fight. However, we do find that with bat-eared foxes, they are monogamous. And once they've formed a pair, they tend to stay with one another for life, or for a prolonged number of periods. Should one of the mates die from natural causes, then it will be replaced by another individual. We're going to stick around a little bit longer and see what these foxes get up to. But in the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Rowan, who's busy viewing a jackal.
So here we've got two blackback jackals that also fight because of territory. And it's interesting, these two, we're in an area called Devonshire Clearings. You can mostly find blackback jackals in a clearing like this. There'd be small termite mounds around, which they could turn into a den. But I was just thinking, and I was chatting to Vika about this, is that I've never seen these two with youngsters. Quite nice in colour though, very, very pale as they go. So they stick out quite a bit in the green grass. You can see they're almost taking in turns to lift their heads up. Just every now and then looking around them, seeing that there's no danger, there's no issue, no predators coming their way, but also listening intently for any sign of a kill, maybe a carcass somewhere. And they are mostly scavenger animals, these blackback jackals, Although I must say now with the Impala lambing season, it wasn't too long ago where we actually saw a couple of Jackal take down an Impala. And sadly the Impala got stolen by hyenas, being a larger predator, larger scavenger, and the Jackal couldn't finish it. See the one in front, the eyes are starting to close. So the sun actually didn't come out. We now have cloud cover all across, and it seems like the majority of our animals are rather lazy today, just relaxing and lying down, much like the big male lion we saw earlier. Good news is the Pride did cross into Ngala, so we've got a few trackers tracking them at the moment. We decided to get out of the area a little bit and head further west to see if we can find the Lioness with her two youngsters, the older youngsters, and then
Sorry about that, Ngala. So, an update about that leopard track we were following. Looks like we crossed to the west, but not where we can go. And so we have to leave the area, check for something else. And the lions, there's no update about them. And then looks like we checked also the border where we were told they might come in from, but then they didn't actually come into Djuma. So we're just going to check for anything else. I have to believe that there's got to be another leopard around. Since, the west, Hukumuri must be there, and then we believe that we might see Tingana coming back, or both of them coming back soon. If they ever bump on each other, that's the way then the fight is going to happen. We're going to push one another, and it's possible that we may see them sometimes together, or they're going to come back home alone. So he pushes, and he stands, which is great. So he's not actually letting anything go down. He's showing his power. It's the only reason he returned back to the west. So it's good that we know he's in the west already. So next time we look, we would expect him to come back from the west to the east to Djuma. So now we're going to check a few waterhole to see if there is anything drinking, anything we're going to find. We're going to share. Not sure what happened to the Pride up north, Kalamati. Maybe they're still in Manyeleti. Because there hasn't been an update since yesterday about them. So it happened back in Manyeleti, that side. So I'm going to go into one of the dam here and check. I'm going to be sending you over to JP with these bat-eared foxes.
Good morning, welcome back to Tswalu. We've just watched the adult bat-eared fox becoming a little bit more curious about some insects that's moving around. And we have also just noticed that the pups have become a little bit more confident in their movements. So we just want to come back to a question that Safari Kitty had a little bit earlier. And with regards to the mortality rate for these cubs and success rate, I unfortunately can't find anything. However, we do see that they are weaned at a very early age, anywhere from 4 weeks of age, and that they are considered as adults by 4 months of age already. So just in general, their lifespan, they can reach an age of approximately 9 years in areas where there's low predator pressure on them. I have found in the past that a number of other predators
Sorry about that again. So we're driving down to Treehouse Dam, where we'll check anything that might be around drinking this time of the day. It's actually not cool for most antelope. Sometimes when they want to drink, this is the best time. But it's actually quite a lot of waters everywhere. These all natural pens, those made by buffaloes and elephants and rhinos out there, still holding a bit of water for the animal to drink while they're out there. So many of the animals, they delay to come to Waterhole or bigger Waterhole to drink because they get water wherever they go, which is great. This Waterhole that we have here, many of them, since they're all man-made, so they're so beautiful. They hold enough water for several months before the whole winter, then still carrying enough water for the animal. Where those natural pens, they're more likely to dry out because they're not that big. And animals, they still have water in these big lakes we have around here. Dam now. Just going to check on the edge of the water if there is anything. And except for the Egyptian geese, you see Simon and the nest right on top of the tree. It looks like we've got an Egyptian geese over here sitting on their nest. There it is. Probably what is happening there. So they always pair in pairs. So they're just going to go down. But I'm not kind of sure. This is actually, I haven't seen them down there, up there in this tree there. So it happens maybe they're trying to check in if they could use as a nest, or it looks like for me it's belonged to the buffalo weaver. So I'm going to move forward because you heard the sound they make. So female, she's the one that's making a lot of noises. So female, they go kind of like a lot of air coming out of her tongue and like hissing sound that the male is making. So there's the only way to distinguish the difference between a male and a female when you're looking at these birds. Otherwise, more likely to be the same than male and female in color. So this is a tree house dam. I'm not sure why do they fly down here. It's because of that. We heard another sound of other Egyptian geese somewhere. It happens, maybe that's why they flew down. Because any other present of arrival here, other Egyptian geese, especially those males which they don't have their mates with them, they're more likely to fly and trying to fight other male. Those are in pair already. So the male over here won't like that. And as you can see there, looks like feeding on a grass seed moss. They are vegetarian.
Hold off thinking.
So I'm gonna take another moment here, see if there's anything come to drink.
Join our Explorers program so we can keep on sharing nature with the world. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic WildEarth expeditions, have access to an animal identification app, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn connects a global population with nature. WildEarth is launching our brand new Explorer program with an opportunity to win a very special WildEarth expedition. The lucky winner will get a behind-the-scenes WildEarth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala Tainted Safari Camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend with a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse. Become a WildEarth Explorer and stand a chance to win this and many other prizes. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Welcome back, and we are with our third big cat of the day. How cool has this morning been? Starting off with cheetah, and then lions, and now a leopard. It's really, really quite an exciting morning on Phinda this morning. Although this leopard isn't joining in on all the excitement. She is just fast asleep. I think she's quite fat. She must have caught something at some point in the night, or maybe yesterday, and the only movement we can really see is just her stomach pumping up and down as she's panting, trying to digest her food and cool herself down. You can just see whiskers and a little bit of her chin hairs. She's in a very, very thick tree at the moment. There's lots of branches and leaves in the way, but you can imagine that that's quite a nice spot for a leopard. Nice and shady and dense and private. And probably with a little bit of breeze flowing through, filtering through the leaves. Perfect place to sit and digest a big meal. A little bit of movement. Just repositioning. I always do wonder how leopards stay so, or look so content with their positions. You can imagine how many squiggly branches are like sticking them in the ribs. Especially when you've got such a fat tummy like that. You just want to be comfortable. Nina, no, male leopards do not form coalitions. That social behavior is unique to lions and cheetah. Leopard are completely solitary, male and female. They'll spend most of their time alone, unless obviously they're mating, and at that point they'll meet up with a animal of the opposite sex, and then they'll spend a couple of days together where they mate, and then they'll go their separate ways. And then obviously the other situation when there's a group of animals is a mother with her cubs, but that's the only time. can just see her stomach pumping up and down with the effort of digesting whatever she ate last night. I think we're going to spend a little bit more time with her and hope that she shows herself a little bit more. But for now, Lauren's got a herd of Impala for you.
Kim, I actually think this is a great spot for your leopard. For any leopard. Every single Impala in the Sabi Sands happens to be here. It's a sea of Impala. We've just popped into Cheetah. We're going to keep scratching around for Lalamba, but unfortunately she went into a sort of zoned off area. The soil's still far too soft there. So we're going to loop round, but I just wanted to check I wasn't missing anything on Cheetah. And clearly we're missing the Impala party. The lambs are getting so big. Look at this one over here, David is just watching us. Very curious. Good morning. They're still got those sort of long gangly legs and awkward bodies. But they're learning remarkably fast because they have to, and it's all through observing mother. Watch and do as mum does. Mum becomes alert, you become alert. Mum snorts, you try and snort. Mum runs, you definitely run. It's all learned behaviour through observations. And of course, they're born remarkably precocial anyway. But that's the only way they're going to survive, is if they follow and do as mom does. There's a nice dominant male there. There's quite a few males. It's a very large herd. Jonathan, why didn't I think of that? Yes, you're right. It's the Impala end of year party. They're celebrating Hogmanay, as they should. Enjoy, guys, you made it. They've survived through all the storms, the most awful storms we've had. The high density of predators we've got everywhere, and here we have the Impala end of year party. I have noticed though the lambs are extremely relaxed around vehicles. We can get very close. There's a little crash happening over here, Dobby. And that slightly worries me. Impala should run away, even if it's only a vehicle, but they're very relaxed. And of course, in a herd this size, it benefits them greatly. And from the outset, it sort of looks like altruistic behavior, but is it? Is it really altruism? Are they really looking out for one another? Sadly, they're not. They're looking out for themselves. It's actually selfish behavior. Ouchie, oxpecker, wow. Mothers possibly would look out for their offspring, but really, by diluting yourself in a large herd like this, you're increasing your chance of survival. It's less likely going to be you that gets plucked off by the predators. It's a dilution effect. They're not really looking out for one another. And by them snorting and alarming when they see a predator, yes, it greatly benefits everyone, but that means that others will copy that behavior. So when another individual alarms, it greatly benefits you. And I'm happy to see that Lalamba didn't pluck off every single lamb. We still have a small population of lambs left. And they tend to stick together in little creche groups in the middle of the herd. So they're surrounded by the adults, but all the youngsters like to be together. Now, I don't know if any of you remember last summer, but we were noticing a lot of floppy-eared impala. It was bizarre and almost unexplainable. We didn't really know what was happening, but a lot of the lambs had floppy ears. The ears had almost not formed correctly. The cartilage was flopped over. And we found one, and we called it, guess what we called it? Floppy ear, yes. And we were overjoyed to find this little lamb. And we saw floppy ear everywhere. And then we realized, oh, actually, there's lots of floppy ears. There were so many impala lambs that had their ears flopped over. And this year, surprisingly so, I haven't seen one. Not one single impala lamb with floppy ears. This one might have a floppy ear soon, though, with the rate that oxpecker's going. Kim, I think that was the name. You're asking a very good question. I am going to guesstimate pushing 100. What would you say, Davy?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Oh, he's agreeing with me. I didn't expect that. Yes, somewhere around 100, I think, including all the lambs, the rams, and the ewe. This is a very, very large herd. And we're right next to Chitwa Dam as well. All the vegetation will be extremely delicious here. Oh, we've got some suckling going over here. Look, this little lamb suckling from mom. I always think with the impala, it looks slightly, painful. It may not be, but it definitely doesn't look like a pleasant experience for mom. And of course, in February or around February here in the Lowveld, you will often find a second sort of lambing bout. And this is the ewes that potentially got pregnant a little bit later. And they normally drop their lambs around February. Okay, we're going to scratch around Chitwa Dam, see if we can find anything else. And we're going to send you guys down to JP.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. We've just been watching a Gemsbok bull. The poor guy is also infested with parasites at the moment. In his case, it is louse flies that are actually bothering them. And these flies have got very well adapted feet that hooks onto the coat of animals, and it's almost impossible to remove them. I've had one of them almost in my ear once before, and one of my colleagues had one as well. And it takes a little bit of work to try and get them out. He's really not happy with them. He was also trying to roll in the soil to get rid of them. So we often notice this bull on this little patch. When we come past here, Gemsbok bulls very seldom will actually leave their territories. Even in the hardest of droughts, they will still stick to their territories. And these areas are generally defended against other bulls at a great cost. And I have seen these guys fighting in the past, and they can inflict serious wounds on one another when it comes to using the horns as a defensive weapon against one another. I've also seen a female once before very effectively using her horns against a group of wild dogs and hyenas to protect the young. It is also said that they can kill lions. However, I have not personally seen this before. Good morning, lazy boy. If I remember correctly, they can get up to approximately 1.2 meters in length. We also tend to find that the females tend to have longer horns than the males have. But they tend to be thinner and narrower at the base. So just a quickly thing about horns that we might have mentioned in the past. Horns are permanent growths. They consist out of the inner core of bone. The material that is then covered with keratin, unlike those of the herbivores that we find, such as deer, which has anthers, that is, non-permanent growths, which are seasonally dropped. These are generally multi-branched and covered with a velvet-like structure. One of my favorite stories about the gemsbok still stays a story about how the unicorn came to be. So this species often observed on dunes and when they're standing with the sun from behind and the horns and the body is kept laterally to you, it looks like a horse with a single horn that's being viewed. Good morning, Zabo. Just to answer your question on how you separate gemsbok from roan, it's fairly easy. A roan has got a more uniform coat colour. It also has a black and white face marking. However, when we do look at the horns, they are shorter and they curve back much sooner compared to a much straighter horn structure that we find in the oryx. The other species that they're often confused with is also sable. However, sable has got a jet black upper coat in the bulls and a white belly. Hence the Afrikaans name, a swart wit pens, meaning a black-white belly, if you translate the name. Quite often Afrikaans names are very descriptive. In the meanwhile, we're going to move on, see what we can find, and hand you over to Kim, who has got a leopard that's busy sleeping in a tree.
So we've moved a little bit closer. I think we've got a little bit of a better view of her now. We can see a bit more of her. You can see her nose and whiskers and mouth and a paw. And an eye, if she were to open it, we might glimpse that. But you do wonder how she can sleep in such a position. She looks like she's on her back, her paws in the air, head back. And you can see that it's an extremely dense tree with lots and lots of branches that can hold her in place. And we are just glimpsing her through the only window that we've got, right between the two main trunks of the tree. So like I said, it's a nice dense tree, and apart from it creating a lot of shade for her, it does also kind of hold her in. Yeah, James, we do tend to see this leopard quite often, actually, here on Phinda. She's very relaxed. I mean, even you can see, like, we're quite close to her. We're right underneath the tree that she's lying in, and she hasn't even batted an eyelid when we drove in and out of here. And, you know, these cruises are quite loud. And she's very, very chilled. So we see her quite often, and we see her mother quite often, and her grandmother is another one that is quite relaxed. We haven't seen her very much recently because she's quite her territory's kind of moved into a very thick, difficult area, so we don't see her as much as we used to. But yeah, leopard viewing on Phinda is getting better and better all the time, which we are quite proud of and quite excited about. And then obviously those 5 cheetah cubs this morning was also very, very exciting to see, those spotted animals. Phinda's always been quite well known for their cheetah, so to have a little group of 5 is very, very exciting. The population did dip briefly last year, but then we had a number of litters of cubs, and we're hoping that they'll all make it to adulthood, and then our cheetah population will be nice and healthy again. But it's actually pretty cool because you can see how perfectly her camouflage works in this setting where the sun is kind of just shining through in little patches onto her. It's like that dappled light is perfectly imitated by her coat, with those darker patches looking like shadows and the lighter patches looking like little sun patches. It's almost the exact pattern that the light shining through the leaves makes. Why it's so difficult to see. I wonder who actually found her in here, who drove past and managed to spot her, because it was a very good spot. Unless you know she's in here, it's quite difficult to see. Yeah, I don't think that she looks like she's going to be moving at any point. I think that we may leave her. Yeah, and we'll go and see what else there is out there for now.
Thanks, Kim. So see what we got here. We got looks like a 2 female giraffe. It looks like it from weight distances. And the reason I'm saying the females, because of the horn structures they have, these ossicorns horn. They are very hairy on top, so for males you see bald on top, which then you see a patch of white on top, where they see all tuft. A little bit of a hair on top like paintbrush. So we're looking at the southern giraffe out here. Where giraffe, they a browser, where they're often seen even far from water sometimes. And they're mainly around where it's a lot of thorn trees. It's acacia and grasses mainly. And they have a very much interesting feeding method where they use their prehensile long tongue to be able to get a hold of what they need. So when I see them do that, they do that onto these very tall trees out here. Sometimes they go down. They pick up bones, they chew bones sometimes for their actually special diet.
9, 8.
So I'm going to stay put here. Hopefully we get close to them. Very nice to see.
We've just found a butterfly for you all. I'm not sure if I've positioned... Yeah, there we go. A stationary butterfly, how wonderful. I think this is an African vagrant. Yes, it is. One of the more common species you see at the start of summer. Now, because the life cycle of a butterfly is cyclic, it's sort of a cycle in nature, you normally find throughout the entire summer window the species peak at different times. because the eggs were laid at different times by the mother. And normally at the start, what species we're seeing right now, the most common ones are definitely the African vagrants and the brown-veined whites. They're the more common ones. Now, if any of you don't know these species... Sorry, everyone, that's Andrew. That's okay, we're going to learn them. I've started a fresh butterfly list from last year. We're starting from scratch so we can learn them all together. And normally the sort of last species to survive, the last man standing, is the spotted joker. I haven't seen any yet, so they normally come out just a little bit later. So they peak at different times. But the sort of plethora of species that we normally see definitely are not around just yet. I don't think the butterfly life cycle has peaked just yet. It's only starting to peak. And the weather is a bit dubious this morning. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the weather. Should we give them a view of the clouds, Dobby? Straight up ahead, we've got lots of dark clouds that look like they're promising rain. I'm relieved the sun is not scorching. However, it's very muggy, very clammy. The humidity levels are high. So I think that's why we got lucky with that butterfly, because it's not been entirely solar powered, as the sun is not fully out. Now, I know lots of vehicles are scratching around for Lalamba, but whether they find her or not, I am not sure. Jaden, what is the easiest animal to track? Definitely not a hyena. Elephants. Their tracks are very large, you cannot miss them. And they are very large. You can also use their dung and their urine. If it's very, very fresh, you'll know that the elephants are in the area. If it's dried a little bit, you'll know that they're probably not in this area and they're far off ahead. And yes, I would say elephants are the most common animals to track. Sabi's just giving you some wonderful views of all the thick vegetation on the side here. I believe my mouth may also not be matching my words, so no one wants to see that. So instead, we'll give you the views. Now, the orb web spider I found the other day, I think I forgot to update you all, was the banded garden orb. It was absolutely stunning. I think we'll look for some more orbies today as well. It was the first one I've seen this season. So I think if we don't have any luck with Lalamba in this area, we'll go back to the hyena den. But we will try and look for Lalamba. She was mobile inwards, sort of in a northerly direction. But you can see from Davi's views here that it's very, very thick. He was also shocked at how thick the vegetation is. The water has really brought a lot of life to the Lowveld. Oh, hello, Mr. Hornbill. You're being very vocal. I think we have a red-billed here. Can you hear it? call sounds very beautiful, but when you hear it continuously, oh, and off it goes, outside your bedroom window. Well, it may not always appear so beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to keep bumbling, looking for any signs of our princess, and we're going to send you across to Andrew, who's found the giraffe.
Thanks, Lauren. Good luck. It's such a beautiful cloud in the background, as you can see here where we are right now. We have to reposition now. We're still with the giraffe, where the other one, I think it's actually move away a little bit for now. Remember, they don't have to always feed together. When they have to, they can, but they will sometimes separate from one another. It's actually giraffe. They are one of the also ruminant animals, which they chew cud, just like cows. So they have 4-chambered stomach. Makes them do that, what you see here. She's not eating at all, but she able to bring the cud that she swallowed a few hours later. So she'll keep chewing. When she swallowed, she'll bring another cud which is unchewed. She'll chew and swallow every time. It works better for giraffe when they are standing up, because they're a tall animal. Where most of the ruminant animals, which is most buffaloes and most antelopes, you find them lie down, these oryx. So find them lying down chewing cud. It works better because they have short neck and they're able to regurgitate easy when they do that. But with the giraffe, they have a long neck. So we talk about that we had sorry, can you bring that question again? Sure. All right, maybe I'm struggling. Maybe that question not coming clear there. So you mean diet, or probably I think that's what you mean. Okay, so the diet for giraffe mostly, it is branch, which is tree. They feed from trees. That's actually special diet. And you see them going over trees to tree quite a lot, which is most thorn trees. And they don't actually eat grasses. And they would rely on these wood around here, these tall trees. And it's actually their special diet. And sometimes they've been actually seen chew bones, which for that they have to go down, all the way down to pick up bone. And that, it's for all animals can do that. We've seen cows do that for their special diets when they need the bones and all the bone to chew up. So yeah, it's mainly trees out here. That's what sustains these animals' life. It's only special diet for them. But I've seen that a lot of oxpecker that has already landed on an animal. So the oxpecker, they help with the ticks. Elisa, I agree with you. They're so amazing when you see them chew like this, especially when they're static. They have to do that when they're all static. So what happened, they have the bottom jaw, it's all teeth, normal teeth, which helps the top lip to actually able to break whatever they feed on. But then the tongue is so important. When they eat, we're able to bring anything into the mouth. And it's been chopped into very small pieces by these molars they have. They would grind just a little bit when they eat, just like cows. So they eat as much as they can. For that, there's a limit where there's a time they will just gonna take it easy and chew cud just like this. So I'm gonna move around a little bit. Gonna be sending you over to JP with his tracks.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. We've just been driving around, and as we came over a dune crest, we noticed that there was a number of very interesting tracks which we could find on the ground. And these belong to an animal that we very seldom see during the daytime, if ever, as they're almost strictly nocturnal. Right foot, our left foot right over here, and they always have three very clear nails. It almost looks like little diamonds that has been packed together. With a Springhare, it actually has a bipedal hop, which is one of the most energy efficient ways of moving. I'm just going to quickly show you a little picture over here, how he looks like. This is our Springhare. So you can see the incredibly large feet, which it uses for hopping, while it's got a very small pair of front feet, which is sometimes used for digging. In general, these animals will feed on grasses and other plant material at night. During the daytime, they will retreat to their burrow systems, where they will stay for the rest of the day until it's dark again. One of the things that I find particularly interesting is that their burrows aren't generally interlinked. There's generally always a well-positioned escape hole, and they also will plug up their holes to prevent anything from coming in there during the daytime. It's always quite funny when we have guests that see them for the first time, that they often confuse them for little miniature kangaroos. However, we don't find kangaroos in Africa. They are absolutely fascinating little animals, and it's always worthwhile to come out on a night drive in the Kalahari to go and see if you can find them. We normally detect them because of their eyes when we do view them, look for them. So if a spotlight does fall on them, the eyes reflect and you see these little eyes bounding up and down. Unlike most animals which walks at one level, where the eyes tend to be at one consistent plane. In the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over back to Andrew, who is busy viewing a giraffe.
Thank you very much. So we decided to actually wait a little bit here, just to see what is going to be happening, because it's such a very important just to see what this animal is doing. Now she was chewing cud, because then what happened, so the first food they eat, it goes to a certain area where otherwise it's kind of like so much impact. When it's overfull, it allows animal not to eat anymore. And then for that, you see, when she chew cud, is that she trying to make another space, and then, which means without chewing cud, eating like this all day, they can still go hungry, which is amazing. So for them to chew cud, the cud that is actually chewed properly, that's where it's going to a normal chamber, which is a normal stomach. So giraffe, they actually have a brilliant sight, where they use sight, which is just to see far away, or hearing, smell as well. And they are the tallest, actually, land mammal, the giraffe. The male giraffe can be anything from about 6 meter height, tall. But you can't believe that animal can reach speed of 50 kilometers an hour when they run. They can able to also defend themselves, and they kick. And that's how they defend themselves from the predators. So I think let's do a silent moment here with this giraffe. Hopefully another one come to join while we're here. Guess what? You want to know the giraffe tongue? The longest tongue of giraffe is anything from 30 inches to 40 inches, somewhere roughly. And it's amazing, you see a little bit of a purple colors in that. And it's way wide too long when you need to release it out. But they're only designed for such animal that they spend a lot of time searching for a special diet, which is a thorn trees. Those thorn trees, their leaves, it's so tiny. And then the giraffe able to pick any one of those. Sometimes, a lot of the time, we've seen this giraffe being in these little trees over here. And it looks like she's going to go way around it. And she don't take many of the thorn there. She only pick leaves, tip end of these new shoots of growth of the trees, branches. Lolo, so you want to know if there is any poisonous trees out here, and how do the giraffe know? Most of the trees that we have around here, the toxic tree would be the tamboti tree, which is highly toxic for all human, and then can be toxic for those animals that are not actually browser, I think, also. But it tends not a poisons for a giraffe. And those black rhinos, porcupine, I think something to do with their stomach. How strong is it to handle those type of toxics? And of course, there is no trees that are height or big enough out here that can kill an animal for sure, except for that tamboti trees, Ethiopia trees also. It's not an actual type of trees that giraffe would feed on. So Ethiopia is, a type of tree that, you find them in gardening in the mountain area. But, you find sometimes it's been recorded that a rhino was seen actually, because rhino also, they have one of these strong tummy. They've been seen feeding on those type of trees. So if it's a trees that is not eatable, but that not only apply to giraffe, but also apply to many of the other species, they will actually definitely know this is not eatable trees for sure. So, well, finally, let me move on, search for anything else. I'm going to be sending you over to a JP with a cheetah.
Luckily, we have some elephants for you. Apologies about that. We lost Tswalu there, but they'll be back with us very shortly. Now we've came across a feeding breeding herd of elephants. We've got a youngster here. From the shape of the forehead, could be a young female. Quite happy. It's not too sunny, it's overcast, and there's lots of delicious food around. Oh, we're not grazing today, we're browsing. Oh, must be delicious. Now we're on Ngala Road North, and for some reason there's always been a black spot in signal. We really never get signal on this road, so I won't be able to follow this herd if they go any further north, but hopefully they won't. That's ticked off leopards this morning and ticked off elephants. This is a happy time for elephants. Winter can be extremely stressful, especially if you're a matriarch and you've got to lead a herd to safety and to food and water. If it's been a drought, if summer did not deliver in terms of water, winter can be extremely harsh, and it puts a lot of pressure on the matriarch, a lot of pressure on herds themselves. And you'll find their behaviour around the reserve can completely change, because they're already in a stressed state. Trees have lost leaves, grass has died, there's really not that... Oh, Davy, there's a dragonfly straight in front of us, look. Our favourite insect, can you see it? Right on the end of that. There we go. Yay! It's right in front of the car. also don't know what species this one is. I'm doing my best to compile a list of all the dragonflies, but the one we had yesterday, many of you were kind enough to let us know that we had an eastern blacktail and a common tiger tail. Thank you, James Richard. And many of you have asked in the past, how come they don't walk? Look at the legs. Look how far up front on the body they are. Even though they have 6 legs, it's not possible for them to carry the rest of the body that's got no support, no legs. That's why I'll just always find them perching, looking around with those big, huge compound eyes, trying to see what prey they can snatch out of the air. Okay, the elephants walked behind us, so we're going to say goodbye to the dragonfly and try and see if we can reposition a little bit better for the elephant. Yes, I see you, dear. It's a youngster. Okay, I'm going to go forward so we can face the elephant's head on. You've got to be really careful in summer. As I was saying, the elephants do tend to be a lot more relaxed. It's when a lot of the females will give birth. It's when the food is plentiful, water is plentiful, but it's so thick, believe it or not, sometimes you can actually miss an entire elephant herd because of the density of the thicket. That's why you have to be very, very careful out here in summer. Drive slowly, always look round corners. Okay, I'm not sure if we're actually going to get a view again. You, hello. Can you see him there, Davy? They make sure that you're aware of their presence, but then they just keep feeding. Everything is just too delicious. So I'm going to let this elephant herd get up ahead. Hopefully we'll get to spend more time with them. And then if not, we'll head to the hyena den.
How insane is that animal?
This is out of this world. Fantastic. Good, Mama.
Wow, what a way to start off. Just such an incredible privilege to be out here. It just keeps on delivering.
There you go, there you go. Heart is pumping right now.
3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Look at this, everybody. We've got a live kill.
The cock's holding the tail. It's holding tight. Lucky Wildebeest.
There's nowhere to go. This is a disaster in the making.
Something that I have never seen before in my entire life that you are now watching live.
My heart is in my mouth, everybody.
Look at this. It's gonna make it. It's going, it's going.
This is just too magical. Hi, little guys. That's great, isn't it? Look at that. Scuba Steve has got a friend.
You've got a friend in me.
It couldn't be a better morning. This is just too special.
Oh my goodness, we've got a turtle.
How epic is this fact that we're coming to you live from the Chobe River? It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live and we're in Rwanda. This is a very, very different adventure, charged with emotion.
I did not think I would ever face my fears like this.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. At the moment we are right on top of a dune crest and looking at a number of trees, which is normally associated with dune crest. So we often find with plants that they have specific habitats and soil types that they prefer. So on the far right of me we have a grey camel fawn, and right in front of me we've got a Kalahari taibos, also known as a Kalahari currant. The name currant comes from the small little black fruits that they produce, which looks like a currant. One of the typical characteristics of a rus species is that they all have 3 individual leaflets to a leaf, and this is the way that you can identify them. So some of the practical uses for this plant is that it's often the fruit is being eaten, but it's also made into a beer. So a little quick recipe that you can share with your friends, how to make beer. The other interesting use for this, as it's got a very strong aromatic scent, is that you can take some of this, you can actually smell it, it's got a very beautiful aroma, and this was actually then used by the sand hunters. This was then used by the sun hunters to provide some form of spice to their meat that they would eat. And meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Kim, who is busy viewing some cheetah.
So we've come back to these cheetah, and how exciting, they've managed to catch themselves a baby Ngala. This happened all of an hour ago, and you can see there's almost absolutely nothing left of it. You can imagine that a Ngala lamb would not go or calf, sorry. Calf or lamb. I've just gone blank. But it wouldn't go very far for 5 growing cheetah. So you can see that that's happened very quickly. And we can't quite see the other 4 cheetah at the moment. They're behind a tree, but I would imagine that there's not much. I don't think they're very fat still. They'll probably have to hunt again very soon, maybe even again later today. This will just give them enough energy to be able to hunt again. You can see the one that's still eating is literally just trying to rip every last morsel of meat off of he's got the head there, the head and a bit of the neck. And you can it's hardly recognizable as a head. It's like, it being such a small meal, they definitely are going to try their best to get everything out of it they can. Yeah, Kate, I'm also extremely chuffed that they got a meal. They were looking very skinny when we were with them this morning and last night. And remember, we did speak about the fact that we thought maybe those zebras were going to give away their position, but it looks like they wisened up and got away from the zebras, and very shortly after that managed to get themselves a Ngala, which is just epic. Oops. Moving off to join the rest of the family. It's quite sweet. They're all just lying there licking one another, cleaning each other up. All 4 of the ones on the ground are grooming each other. So they'll have a bit of blood and mess on them from the hunt and the feeding, and they'll be cleaning each other up, trying to make sure that they don't smell at all. Cheetah are quite low on the food chain when it comes to predators, and they have to make sure that they're very, very clean and don't smell at all, so that other animals or other predators can't find them. It's very, very cute, that little family bathing that's going on. I love how content they look when they're grooming each other, like eyes closed, just in pampering happiness. And it's also quite sweet, because I'd imagine that might have been quite a dramatic scene, all 5 of these cheetah trying to eat from one tiny carcass, and I think there might have been a little bit of tension in the ranks with them all trying to get their full, and now we just have this very loving scene after what I'm sure would have been quite an unloving scene around the carcass. I think for these 5, they are still quite small. I think for them to all be kind of averagely full, not like popping, but I'd say maybe 2 or 3 Impala lambs or Ngala lambs would do the trick in making this group quite full. And if we saw that little Impala lamb earlier today and saw how little meat they've got on, 1 of those per cheetah would probably just be enough to fill them up. But I think this Ngala was a little bit bigger than the Impala that we saw this morning. And might do a bit of a better job of filling them up, but I do think that they'll need to hunt again quite soon. I think that these cubs will probably stay with the carcass for still a little while. They might go back and forth eating or still just licking at and tearing at those last little bits of meat. I think that they really are going to take advantage of every last bit that they can get off of the carcass. Let's see that one standing up, if we can see the belly and see what it's looking like. Yeah, that one looks quite fat actually. Definitely got a bit of a bulge to the stomach. It's possible he got first dibs and managed to fill himself quite a bit. See the next one? See, that one's still looking quite skinny. And you can still see all of them have got some food in them. Last one looks a bit less full. Jackie, I don't think that they would try to defend their meal. I think that they'd probably just run away. They're still quite young and vulnerable, and they don't want to expend energy on trying to fight other predators, and especially, well, depending on what predator it is, they are probably going to come off second best. We spoke yesterday about cheetah's muscle mass and how they don't have very much of it. They're mainly just bones, and they're nice and skinny, made for speed. They aren't, well, they're strong, but they're not very strong in comparison to a leopard or a lion or a hyena. So I think their best bet would actually just be to run away and not get into a conflict situation that could cause them harm. probably be less energy and less risk in just going and catching themselves another meal. Like if they were a bit older, maybe the adult males would try and defend their meal with all three of them, but for now I think that they'd probably just run away. The only thing is that they're still quite young, maybe they don't know that they should run away, but yeah, that's what I think would happen. They are heading into a little bit of a thicker area. We'll see what they do, but we'll send you over to Andrew.
Thanks, Kim. So, what we got here, it's an Waterbuck. Waterbuck is an antelope that I often find in this area. I know this morning we saw a few of them heading into the thicket. And here we also have, looks like a male that lay down. But looks like he's chewing also a card. You know, this is what we were talking about earlier when many of the antelope, they tend to lie down when they chew a card, which allows them to regurgitate the card easily. It's got a beautiful two set of horn and they're very sharp. But only males have them. And the female don't have the horn at all. So Waterbuck, there's a system sometimes where you do come across the bachelor group of those males that don't really dominate. So and it happens, maybe it's so many of the males in this area. But also there's a system where the male will let the female go on their own. And then he will stick far from them sometimes, or allows undominated bulls to join him. Only when it comes to the checking on his status on the females, which him only allows to do that as a dominator. And the hairy coat, I know it's actually very difficult to get a closer look, but so their coat is actually oiled secretion which prevents a tick's bite, most of the parasite. And that secretion, as us humans, sometimes we do pick up these kind of like punching smell out of this animal if there's a chance the wind blows to your way. But lions, leopard, indeed, you're right. It's actually magnificent horn, especially they are equal length, which males use them for a fight many of times. So that's why they would have horns, so they do fight for a dominate. Seems to be 99 centimeter long. And then also male can weigh over 200 kilogram, 236, way up there, kg, where female weigh less. Or probably 160, 180, roughly. So there is a size difference. And they're mainly seen around the Waterhole. And that's where their name came from. as a waterbuck. So they use water quite a lot to escape from their line, which I think we just spot another young male that is about to cross the road, but still on the other side of that tree there. But if he moves, then he will be crossing on the road right now. Only just a little short horn that is already growing in that young male. So it's probably he's not alone, so he's accompanied by other non-dominant bull around here. Those are still quite young. And they eat grasses quite a lot, so they are grazer. Find them in the open, spend a lot of times close to a lake, and they would actually attach to water, which they feed on reeds, which grows around the water. And that young one looks like it's already crossed the road but disappeared. You see, they actually have a beautiful marking, white circles on their back. There's a follow me sign. So as a diurnal animals, they're not territorial. I mean, they're not nocturnal. So it works well when they have white marking on their backside. So when they move, even in the darkness, they're able to lead the same direction. Those on front give indication of those on the back. So I'm going to leave them also searching around here for anything else. I'm going to be sending you over to JP with his track.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. We're still looking at tracks at the moment, and we've just discovered a track of a porcupine, a track that's best described as a number of pieces from a puzzle that's been put together. If you can notice, there's the toes right over here, of which we generally find 4 of the toes, which we'll mark. And then right over here, there's a main section of 1, 2, 3 pads, and another 2 little pads at the back of a foot, which forms a whole track. Sometimes we do find the quill markings over the tracks as well, which helps us to actually identify the species. So the species that it's often confused with is a honey badger. However, when we look at the toes, they're pretty rounded compared to that oblong or sausage-shaped toes which we find with the honey badger, which is not a common animal in this area. And if you also look very closely to the round toe tips, there's tiny little nail markings. Generally, with honey badger, the toenails mark at equal length as that the toe is long away from the tip of the toe. I'm just going to show you a little picture over here so that you can see the differences between the two. Both of these species have got very well adapted nails for digging. Honey badgers often dig out rodents, snakes. They also will dig out the dung balls or brood balls from dung beetles and eat the larvae inside there. When with a porcupine, the toes are much more rounded as mentioned earlier, and they've got blunt toenails, which is close to the tip of the toe. They, on the other hand, will use these for digging out roots and tubers and a number of corms and toxic plants that they will feed on, the bulbs of these plants. So quite often when we do find other additional field signs for porcupine when they were eating, we'll find that they've been eating on roots that's been discarded. Sometimes we also find their tracks close by to pieces of bone, which they will gnaw on to obtain calcium, and these might even be dragged with them back to their burrow. One of the things that I find particularly interesting about porcupines, that they're one of the very few animal species out there which has to mate and have some form of intimacy to ensure that the female will be in estrus. So they will actually mate on a daily basis. It's also believed that if a female has not been mated with for approximately 3 months, she won't be going into estrus. Good morning, Trist. On the comment with regards to porcupines, I would also love to see one. However, they're mostly active at night. We very, very seldom see them in the daytime. So the best way of actually finding porcupines is knowing their behaviors and where their dens are. And then finding them at night time. Good morning, Tom, and welcome to the show. And to answer your question with regards if they grow back, yes, they do grow back. They're actually modified hairs. We call them quills. And what we also find is that unlike popular belief has it that they can shoot the quills, they cannot do so. So what they normally will do is when they are harassed by a potential predator, such as a leopard or a lion, or even wild dogs, I've seen all 3 of these species full of porcupine quills in the past, is that they will actually reverse into the animal and then it will get stuck into their bodies. So if it does end up in the face, it can potentially damage the eyes, which is more than sufficient to deter most predators. However, if it does get stuck in the body, it also sometimes leads to septicemia, as these quills will remain in their bodies and often break off in the body of the predator that was harassing the poor porcupine. Another strategy, what we find with porcupines, is that they'll often stamp their feet, they'll make sounds, as well as rattle the quills, and use a combination of those black and white quills as warning colors to deter the predator. In most cases, this is a very successful strategy. However, we do find that certain individual leopards, as well as lions, quite often had learned this behavior and has passed this behavior of catching porcupines on to their young, who will then also in return specialize in catching this specific rodent. One of the interesting things that I did see with a porcupine here in Tswalu was a porcupine that Dylan hand-raised at one point, which was abandoned. And one afternoon I went to go and visit Dylan, and he brought back a bag of oranges, which weighed in excess of approximately 5 kilograms. This porcupine immediately grabbed the bag of oranges and dragged it off. I find it incredible how strong they are, and couldn't believe it when they actually dragged a 5-kilogram bag of oranges away. So eventually Dylan did manage to take it away from him. However, there was a lot of threatening and hissing and stamping of feet, as well as rattling of quills in the process, just to say, hey, this is my oranges. However, we decided that we liked oranges more than the porcupine did. And meanwhile, we're going to continue, see what else we can find. And we're going to hand you over to Lauren, who's going to tell you a little bit more about termites.
Talking of porcupines, I'm going to use my porky pointer to point out the mighty ones of the bush. Now, this is a mound that I've been coming to the past few days. I wanted to show it to Davy, but just in here, I think Davy's managing. Oh, there's a little worker that's popping out. The workers are still going strong. And I've been taking photos of this mound. I would love it if you guys could all take screenshots as well of the development that's taken place each day. From these tiny, tiny little minuscule insects, they're just using their own saliva, debris, and soil to build this. Now, yes, it's very small, but I don't know if you can see this part. I'll get Davy to move over. I'm not going to do any damage, don't worry. But I'm just going to touch it here and you can actually see how solid it is. It's not breaking. Yes, if I was to stand on it with my heavy body weight, of course it would. But it's very robust, and that's what these termites are able to create. Now I'm just going to have another scan around. I don't see any soldiers. I just see the workers. They're popping out here. I just love seeing them at work. I think it's the most fascinating, interesting thing. And they're so rich and nutritious that all the organisms out here want to eat them. They've got about 38% protein, which is really high, said to be relatively higher than beef. So you'll find all your predators, your raptors, your reptiles, your amphibians. I think the only category of animals that don't eat termites are your fish. We don't really see fish walking too often on land to catch termites, but you never know. Otherwise, everything eats them because they are so nutritious. They have a lot of protein, as I mentioned, but also fatty acids. KG, a long time. Some of the mounds we see out here are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And the sort of rough guide that we normally give for an American football, not the other kind of football, that sort of oval shape, if you like, that can take about 7 years to build. You just imagine an American football-sized mound that can take up to 7 years. So that kind of gives you an indication. And every time we come here, you're able to see the dark soil. The damp soil is the new build, if you like. I'm not sure if you're able to get a view here, Davy, but you can see a comparison between the old mound that's been here always and then the new build. See how dark it is? And that's because they require the moisture. Termites rely on moisture in order to start getting active. Now they're obviously going to grow it. It's a 3D sort of effect. It's going to grow up and out. And that's why you can model these structures. But inside there's tunnels and chambers and galleries, the royal cell. But it's their functioning everyday life. They're not actually living in this mound. The mound is underneath, way below the surface that we cannot see, is where the nest is. And that's exactly where they will live, where we don't see them in winter. So they're just building their city, they're building their life 24 hours a day. Absolutely remarkable. I'm going to keep checking this mound every single day and watch it grow and grow.
Good luck, Lauren. So what we now have discovered there looks like a nest. Probably I think it's a butterfly eagle nest. They often do that on the very bottom of the tree on a fog. And there have been actually a pair of them seen around here. But not only the one nest, so it's quite a few nests where you see on the side. These are then different birds, not eagle at all. Those one on the far side of these trees, looks like both sides of the trees are buffalo weavers, red-billed buffalo weavers. Those are social birds, where they move in such a group of probably anything from 10, maybe 12, 15 possibly. And they were able to build such a structure like this, which they use all type of wood, thorns, and eventually it's actually compact and it's all a bigger thing. The only problem is when then it comes over heavy for such a branches. That is the result of, if it's ever wind, it will also still break the whole branches. This is too heavy, then we overweight the branches and then they break down to the ground where it's a lot of a loss for these cheeks and whoever's in a nest in there. So there's a red-billed buffalo weaver and a butler nest. So we're going to move on.
Okay, so we came back to check on the Pride of Lions that we saw already this morning, and as you can see, as it's heated up, they have gone nice and deep into a thicket and they are cooling down. You can see that the lionesses are in here, and I'm wondering if they weren't here earlier. I know earlier I said only the 5 youngsters were there and we couldn't see the lionesses. Now I'm wondering if they actually were here the whole time and we just didn't spot them deep in the thicket. And this is just how it goes at this time of day. We left the cheetah because they also headed off into a nice cool thicket. The leopard climbed down from her tree and headed down into a deep riverine area. So it is the order of a hot day in Zululand. The animals just seek out shady, cool areas. I feel like we also should be seeking out shady, cool areas, but these lions have not put themselves in a very generous spot for us to have some shade. And we're looking at them enviously. It'd be quite nice to be in there with them, or maybe not with them, but in there where it's nice and cool. Yeah, Debbie, these lions do not look like they have a care in the world, and that generally is the way of lions. They don't have many things to worry about in terms of threats, so that is why they can sleep so well. It's like, you know, when you don't have a worry in the world, if you know that feeling, you generally sleep very, very well, whereas if you've got things weighing on your mind, you're not going to sleep very well. These lions don't often have very much on their mind, and they're able to just sleep very soundly. Different from other animals in the bush who are always having to be on full alert in case something like a lion is going to try and attack them. So the lions are quite lucky that they don't have to have that worry. Most other animals, I mean Impala, they don't even really sleep. I think they just have intervals of kind of rest period, but they never completely fast asleep. They'll maybe lie down and close their eyes for a few minutes, but they'll be awake and alert again quite quickly. Because falling asleep for a little bit too long and a little bit too deeply could be fatal out here. Quite a pretty little thicket that they've chosen to sit underneath. It's all in flower. I think that it's a bunch of the Vacalia species. I think that it is a camel thorn. I'm just going to double check in my book. You can see a whole lot of CMR bean beetles flying around as well, and they often feed on the little leaflets of the Vacalia species. I'm just going to double check what this tree is. Okay, while I try and find out what this tree is, we are going to send you over to Lauren with her termites.
I haven't left. Darby and I jumped out, we inspected this mound. We can't give you the best visuals because we're on a vehicle, but as you look down into this sort of hole, you can see everything that's going on inside. They can also use dung, a little bit of dung mixed in with the soil and saliva to reinforce their walls. And although they appear very solid, they are solid. I just tapped it with my porcupine so you were able to see that. They're also incredibly porous. And this allows the sort of air to permeate, if you like. There's not only a ventilation system installed, there's a circulation system installed. They have lots of chimneys and lots of holes in order for the air to circulate, to keep it nice and fresh, and so the termites can breathe through their tracheal system, but also so that they can maintain a constant temperature. It's almost like an air conditioning unit. The temperature will always be constant, and warm air rises and cold air sinks. So when when air comes into the mound, it'll first start to sink to the bottom as cooler air and push the warm air up. And then again, that cycle will continue. Cooler air will come in, sink to the bottom, warm air will rise. And this is a sort of constant flow, the constant circulation of air to keep it fresh inside. So it's not as solid as you would think it is. And the chimney generally sits at the top. There's a central chimney, and this is surrounded by a really intricate network of tunnels and little secret passages. It's also for hygiene reasons as well. Keep the air flowing. Lorraine, very good question. When do they sleep? Well, they don't. They're said to work 24 hours a day. So when do they rest? I'm not sure they do. I was a firm believer that all insects have to rest. But when it comes to termites, I'm really not sure they do. And that's why they're so nutritious. They're so nutritious because they themselves require that energy in order to sustain themselves day in and day out. They need to just keep going and going and going. And really, they're the sort of paragons of self-sacrifice. It's all about the colony. There's no individuality. There's no selfishness. It's all about the collective. And that's what I just... No matter how many times I sort of say it out loud, it just blows me away every single time. And it's really hard to relate to an insect when it comes to intelligence. And you know I enjoy talking about intelligence. But the fact that they have a caste system with separate roles, organized by the queen, her pheromones, as well as some environmental cues. They know their place, they know the job they have to do, they know the purpose. They know who protects them, they know who to feed, they know who is the king and who is the queen. They know their function. They know that they've got to build a mound. They don't use a blueprint or architectural drawing. There's no boss, there's no leader. They all just know what they've got to do. And I think that's remarkable, and that shows some level of cognitive ability that we're just not aware of. They just do what they have to do. Yes, animals can lay on termite mounds in winter to warm up, absolutely. And sometimes it can be the opposite effect. In summer, they can lay on termite mounds to cool down. They do both, especially the likes of leopards. Now, this is not really in fact, it's a very, very small mound. But the bigger termite mounds have often got trees growing out of them. Or a lot of vegetation surrounding them, which provides a lot of shade. So in summer, termite mounds are actually the most ideal spot to rest, especially if you're a leopard. But this particular mound is definitely not a resting spot for a leopard. It's really, really small. I think termites are just a little bit misunderstood due to the fact that they do cause a lot of damage to residential homes. They'll eat the wood. And the estimated number, or the estimated figure, of damage in the US is $5 billion of property damage per year. Ouch. That's a lot of damage. So people look at termites as pests and in a very negative light, rather than really sort of observing what they do out here. The ecosystem that we're in right now, the Lowveld, could not survive without termites. They're the backbone of any ecosystem, and you cannot separate them. They do so many sort of ecosystem jobs, ecosystem rules, and it would not flourish or survive without them. And yet they're minuscule. They're tiny little insects, and they're doing all these roles. Dr. Octobong, good to hear from you. Yes, it does get stronger as it dries out. The sort of soil can be a little bit malleable when it's moist, but that's exactly what the termites need. They need the sand to be soft, or the soil, to be soft and easy to move. They're not exactly the largest animals that can carry a lot of weight. And then once it hardens, absolutely, in the sun, that's when it will really reinforce the mound and become extremely strong. Now, if an elephant was to walk on this right now, or maybe even just a lion or an impala running across it, it would do damage. The darker part of the soil here is very fresh, and you could easily break it. So they will just keep building and building all summer long. And only when those temperatures start to drop will the termites go back down to the nest. But they'll still be rebuilding and maintaining and working down in the nest. You just won't see them. They won't be visible to the human naked eye. Okay, we're going to leave this spectacular mound now and bumble a little bit closer to home to see what we can find. But for now, over to Kim and her lions.
So we are actually looking at the flowers of what I've decided is a umbrella thorn. I think that it's a thicket of umbrella thorns that are still quite young, and as they grow older they will flatten out into that beautiful iconic African umbrella thorn shape. But we are also just honing in on, well, it's just flown away now, but on these beetles, these CMR bean beetles that are feeding on the flowers and leaflets of this umbrella thorn. It's quite interesting. I've got my book open on these beetles, and it says that these beetles actually regulate the number of grasshoppers, which is very interesting. And the reason for that is that the beetle lays their eggs, I think, nearby or on top of grasshopper eggs, and the larva then eats the grasshopper eggs. There we go. There's two, but I mean, how interesting is that? And I mean, that'll just be something that helps to balance out nature. It's incredible how it just sorts itself out. Okay, there are too many grasshoppers, so let's... I don't know if the umbrella thorn has any medicinal properties. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not sure of that. It's just, I know it's just a very iconic tree. It's like the tree you see in all the silhouetted pictures of Africa. The African sunset in the background and those trees shaped like umbrellas. I'm going to go and look for you though. I've got it very close to me. So it says that stands of these trees can indicate very, very good soil. It says that the leaves are very nutritious and the pods browsed, but that's any.
Sorry about that, Phinda. And here we got herds of elephants which just need to find a gap to wait until then we're gonna see them. Looks like a beautiful herd of elephants on our left-hand side. As you can see here. So we drove the boundary area and their tracks was moving away from this area and they came back exactly the same route. So we saw the new tracks leading back to Djuma. This is how we track them and find them. This one, she's a lot gray because of the sand. And those are already have waters, a little bit of waters on their body. You can also tell that they're a bit wet. Also big males among them here. One male. So it happens he hooked up with them, which is no problem. They're the same species, but maybe he won't stay longer with them if then there is no business with them. These are two-colored animal. Their face and the ears are wet. The backside is not yet. Maybe the puddle of water was not enough for them all to get wet enough. Go ahead and repeat that question again. Okay, diseases elephant can get, Lorraine. So, with the elephants, in a lot of time, I know they die of age pretty much when they're old enough. And for sure, they sometimes have their trunk paralyzed when it happens. Cannot use the trunk, and the results of death that take place. But also heart attack that can interfere on them. Seen a lot of elephants die during a game capture, where they were not actually okay with the sound of the chopper. So that's a general nut, and it can be more of other disease that I'm not sure about, but generally disease that sometimes they will come across, or kind of a natural causes where they get their tooth wound up that they weren't able to eat and they die from starvation. So heart attack is one of the disease can interfere them. This very female here, she's trying to suckle the baby. If you look across the tusk, you can see how the baby's sneaking through, and she has to reposition for that. So the baby won't drink while she's moving because the teat's on underneath of the front leg. So I'm going to stay put here with this elephant. I'll be sending you over to Lauren with the Waterbuck on their dam.
Now we've came to Gowrie Dam. I'm very aware that the dam cam is not working, and I'm sure many of you are missing it dearly. Marcel's trying his very, very, very best. It's been since that storm, that huge storm we had. So I thought I'll give you a view of Gowrie Dam. We've got some waterbuck relaxing with a grey heron, as you do. Female waterbuck. I'm not scared at all of the heron. The heron's not scared of them. And the dam here is still very, very full. I mean, it's been full for quite some time, but those last rains really, really topped it up. Oh, Davi, what have you got there? The whistling ducks. They're actually a permanent feature around this water body these days. One of the most attractive ducks, I must say. I think it's the white-faced whistling ducks. Although they're very busy with their head underwater. They have a really mixed diet. They will eat vegetation that's found around water bodies. They'll eat seeds, tubers, but they also love to snack on insects and mollusks if they can find them. So they're most likely looking for some sort of aquatic insects right now. Now I can see mating dragonflies everywhere, and I'm desperate to put them on camera, but they just won't stay still. They mate in the air, and they don't hover as they do so. They move. I'm throwing Davi under the bus here. But it's so important to mate now. That's what adult dragonflies are here to do, reproduce. It's summer, they're in their adult phase of the life cycle, but I don't think any of them are going to stay stationary. Butterflies can mate in the air as well, but sometimes they will cling on to the vegetation. Dragonflies, not so much. Julia, yes, it's looking so great and full. Very, very full. There's water everywhere. I'm very surprised, to be perfectly honest, with our leopard luck recently. leopards. It's raining leopards here in Djuma. And considering there's just water everywhere and the bush is so thick, I am surprised at how lucky we've been. We could easily go a week or two without seeing any leopards due to both of those reasons. But luckily we're seeing them. We'll try to spend time at Gowrie Dam, both Andrew and I, on sunset and sunrise safaris, just because I am aware that many of you are missing the dam cam. I checked back on the hyena den and no luck. I think it's a little bit too hot and sticky now. And talking of being hot and sticky, we're going to send you across to Kim with her sticky lions.
Okay, welcome back. Quite jealous of Lauren and her beautifully full watering holes. We're lacking that somewhat on Phinda. Had some rain and everything filled up a little bit, but now it's been ridiculously hot and everything is just drying up again, which is quite sad. I think that we're due for some rain tomorrow though. So hopefully all the watering holes will replenish as well. But yeah, we are still just sitting here with these lions. I think they've assumed the position that they are going to be in for the rest of the day. I think it's predicted to get up to about 37 degrees Celsius today on Phinda, which is hot. With the added humidity, it is quite a heat, quite a suffocating heat, and even, yeah, most of the animals don't really do very much, as you can see. Lions, I suppose, will be sleeping in most places, actually, but yeah, they do tend to be more active when it's cooler. So Vince, this pride of lions, it's the 5 young cubs, about 9-10 months old now, and then the 2 lionesses, and they will probably hunt. It varies. They're very opportunistic, so they can hunt every single day if they need to, and they probably, I would say maybe every 2 to 3 days is probably enough for this pride. And also obviously depends on what they catch. If they catch a big zebra or a big wildebeest, then that'll keep them going for a couple of days. If they catch something small like a zebra foal, then that's a different story, and they'll probably have to hunt again quite soon. So it's quite a varied thing, that with how often they need to hunt. Obviously, the bigger the pride, the more often they have to hunt. And that's also what we're seeing here with this pride, is that they seem to have broken away from the rest of their pride. It could be 6 lioness, these 5 cubs, there's another 4 youngsters somewhere, plus the 2 males. So quite a big pride. But obviously, the smaller the pride, the less often they have to hunt, and the less lions that need to share on a single carcass. So they feel that it's actually better sometimes to split away from the pride. They do sometimes join up every now and again. They are still related and they still are part of the same pride, so they don't fight one another. There's no tension. Tension or splitting of a pride completely would happen if there was a shortage of food. And then there would be quite a lot of tension, because obviously they would be fighting over food and over territory, and they would have motivation to try and defend their territory from their ex-pride members. But that's not the case here in Phinda. We have got lots and lots of animals. They definitely don't go starving. There's a lot for them to choose from and hunt, so they are okay, and I don't think that would happen here. I think these lions are literally just going to be here for the rest of the day. We may stick around with them. I don't know if there's much time for us to find anything else. We'll just see if we get any movement, maybe a flick of an eye lash.
Have you been watching WildEarth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. WildEarth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live WildEarth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily. WildEarth is launching our brand new Explorer program with an opportunity to win a very special WildEarth expedition. The lucky winner will get a behind-the-scenes WildEarth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala Tainted Safari Camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend with a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse. Become a WildEarth Explorer and stand a chance to win this and many other prizes. Terms and conditions apply.
Caught up again with the grumpy Rosmel that we had earlier this morning. He did end up moving slightly west, but instead of settling in the riverbed, as I thought he might would, he continued a little bit further west, so we're not too far from a pan system. Actually, very, very clever place to go lie down, because you might have buffalo coming down a little bit later and settling in the mud, actually cooling themselves down. So where he is, just in the shade of a guai thicket, actually quite well hidden. I think if you had to walk maybe about 20 meters, 30 meters away from this guai thicket, you won't really see him, because there's a lot of vegetation surrounding the guai thicket where he's in. But fast asleep and quite a nice shady spot, so I think that's him for the day, which is good for us, so we know exactly where to find him in the afternoon. Sadly, he did walk in with the rest of the Pride, and then the Pride turned around and they walked back to Auburn, to exactly where they were yesterday. So Beacon and I had quite an interesting morning. We followed the tracks of the Pride, they crossed out, then we went to the direction where we had the female and the youngsters yesterday, and didn't track too long, couldn't find them, and then we just came back to this male. Must say, as we approached, he gave us a very grumpy glare. He's really got one crazy eye. Daniel wants to know, how old is a lion when he's not called a cub anymore? So Dan, we usually call our lions cubs up until about 1.5 to 2 years, and then they go into sub-adulthood. So 2 years is probably a good time, because then if there was a Pride takeover or different male lions coming into the area, this is where the younger males would actually be old enough to run away, and the females would be incorporated into the Pride, and the new males would probably start, well, they can mate with a 2-year-old female. So I would say about 2 years of age, you wouldn't call lions cubs anymore. Saying that, we still often do it just to differentiate, because we have so many layers of ages within the Birmingham Pride right now, so it's a bit hard to distinguish cubs and then older cubs, then sub-adults, and yeah, a bit hard to just put a number to it, Daniel. See the belly, see the movement every now and then of him breathing. So it's actually getting very humid and very hot. The clouds are breaking every now and then, so I think this guy's got a good idea. Just stick to the shade the whole day. He's just not giving us a grumpy glare right now. It's really nice of him to settle down, but you can see the ear is pointing directly towards us. So everything I say, he's hearing. Of course, being an apex predator, I think in a little bit he might actually fall asleep and start snoring. Quite funny to hear a lion snoring. They do sleep rather well, being the largest predator in the area. Especially this guy. It's amazing to see him every single time he returns from either Kruger or west of us, that he's got new scars on his face. Of course, quite a bit of this would be from the females that he spends a bit of time with. If they are on a carcass, they'll often fight about it, and even the youngsters, the sub-adults, the cubs, whatever you want to call them now, they are ferocious at a carcass. A lion does not hold back. Regardless of size, they'll still smack the dad. And of course, the ras male would smack back. Lindy, asking if lions have dreams. Lindy, I actually do believe they do, because strangely enough, you know, when you look at your dog and you can actually see them running when they sleep, so they go with their paws. And I've seen lions do exactly the same thing. I've also seen lions just, you know, like wake up with such a start, almost scaring themselves. So maybe a little bit of a nightmare. I don't know what they dream about. I can imagine they dream about chasing buffalo or giraffe or things like that. But you do often see their paws moving like dogs do. So I do believe they have dreams. I don't know if there's a way to test it, but yeah, I think if you had to compare it to a pet, most probably they do dream. Be a very interesting thing to know what a lion dreams about. Can you imagine it's just food or a larger territory, or more babies for males, I guess. Lindy, very good question. I like that. He's not dreaming at the moment. I think he's still just listening to my voice. Although maybe my voice is putting him to sleep. You never know. His eyes are closed, finally. I was saying earlier that this guy definitely has one crazy eye. It's his right eye. And so this is why we're more scared of him than his brothers, because the right eye, it's like it's opened wider than the left eye. I think if the right eye looked like the left eye, we wouldn't be as scared of him. But the right eye is just like a crazy eye. So when he does stare at you, you almost feel like you shouldn't be there, or you should actually just reverse and go in a different direction. Remember the other day, we found him and we were driving past him, and BK was actually sitting a little bit higher on the box of the vehicle, and he crouched down and he was just staring up at BK, and it actually made BK sit down. So yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I don't really trust him too much. But then again, I mean, being here, I've seen him charge a number of vehicles before, a number of ranges. Of course, it makes you laugh. He's never followed through with the charge. He just runs at them, gives a growl, and it's enough to make any ranger feel a little bit uncomfortable. And the guests, they stop breathing. So yeah, very funny. But yeah, lovely having you guys this morning. I think this afternoon Nikki will be joining you from andBeyond Ngala. So this is the end of my stint. Have a very nice day.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. What a beautiful afternoon this morning, sitting here in this very beautiful trees with, looks like a leopard right on top of the tree. It's in a magical. And welcome aboard to your very own safari through the African bush. Good day, good afternoon, everybody again. As you can see right there, we have a beautiful leopard right on top of these marula trees. It's amazing that actually, as we got here, she was just walking across the road and she climbed this beautiful tree right in front of us. My name is Andrew. On camera, I have Marcel this afternoon. So it's a wonderful way of a start of this drive. Didn't actually have to travel far from the camp, and we got a leopard.